Alrighty, hello every folks. So, don't worry, it's not frozen, it's just on the first screenshot here. But today, just kind of wanted to share a story about a new run that I've been trying just for the hell of it. So you might have seen the video lately, detailing a cheat that allows you to go basically play New Game Plus as your new game type run. And so, you know, I was going around through old files. There was one here that was the Stubborn Wretch challenge a while ago. I was just playing around with, and it got me thinking, you know what? There's a lot of interesting optimizations you can do in this game, but what would happen if you suddenly decided to do potentially one of the most suboptimal runs possible? Namely, you know, for a while I kept hearing of stories here and there of, you know, somebody leveled up XYZ number of classes and got themselves stuck in some weird way, or, you know, decided that the only way forward through the game is to grind for 13 billion hours and then complain it was too grindy, that kind of thing. So, this got me thinking, you know, let's go ahead and give this a go. We have this cheat that basically says, screw it, we're doing New Game Plus now, so there's no excuse whatsoever. Hell, you know what? I've been considering calling it the No Excuses Challenge, but whatever. We'll see what name it ends up going with once this actually goes up. But the general idea is simple. We use this cheat to be in New Game Plus, so this means that the entire game will scale up at all times, led by our leader Sub-Optimus here. So, at any rate, yeah, we'll be going through. Everybody has to use a unique class. Nobody can double up, even when NPCs are involved. We're going to be going through and trying to appreciate as much of the story as possible going through it, because, you know, we're supposed to be emulating a newbie getting themselves stuck in a weird way, so we're also going to be weirdly zoomed in for cinematic effect. Don't worry about it, that's fine. So, apparently, being all silent here makes you quick to anger, you know, which, by the way, if you didn't know, the guide specifically mentions that your starting character's gender is decided by these questions, and while it does say that one question in particular decides both genders, I believe it's actually a flip between the two. That if you answer one of them, you get half boys, half girls. If you answer two of a particular question, you get all girls, like in this one. If you answer the other way, you get mostly dudes and a female healer, I believe. Either way, even if you deny them, they specifically let you know that, yeah, no, these guys are absolutely coming with you. You're not getting yourselves out of the tutorial that easily. I wish you could. But anyways, yeah, we skip through all of the never-ending them talking. This particular part is one of the reasons that I've tried speedrunning this before, and I've just gotten annoyed by it, because then you eventually get to text boxes that get you stuck, and you know that's time you're not getting back. But at any rate, yeah, the intro going through, explaining all of these different things, that explaining that if there's a class you've never encountered, you'll have to work to level them one at a time. So fantastic, we will make sure to do that. And yeah, the general idea of this run is essentially to use the minimum level possible to get through. Now, I'm still considering whether or not this means that all new classes have to be immediately adopted, but that's not the only part of the challenge. In fact, we're doing this using no stores as well. So no stores, no chariots, no crafting, none of that cheating BS. We are doing this completely suboptimally. So yeah, as Vice says, the only duty is to stay alive. But yeah, so obviously, we're only trying to help. Went over here down to this bottom island, which according to the guide is the earliest potential place you can get a shift stone, so that's kind of neat, but ended up getting lots of hemp. Apparently there's a very very heavy pod influence in this place, because everything's made of hemp. Funnily enough, actually a lot of bits of Eastern Europe were just like that. That it's just instead of tobacco, they kind of had pot back in the day, just a different version. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So, experience points are awarded to individual units, but are not awarded to individual units, whatever. Now, this part always cracks me up, because they're like, oh yeah, the way's clear, and then the door magically opens, and you just sort of go in. Like, oh, why do you meddle? Well, I don't know. Why did your idiot self open the door? Bigger questions here. Also, Agares, the exact same name as the guy that there's a million clones of in March of the Black Queen. Not sure if that's intentional or not. These guys are completely not against necromancy, so a similar type of army. At this point, we get everybody up to their 2s and 3s. Man, this is looking disgusting after you get that... after you could potentially get there as level 8 for that other challenge I was doing. And so, yeah, lands over here, lying to everybody, as he does, you know, if... Well, you have to have the Order of Velociraptor, by the way. I've been listening to way too much of Starship Velociraptor lately. I've probably listened to that album maybe 30-plus times. Anywho, yeah, like he says, win or lose, where there's life, there's hope. As long as we ain't dead, we're keeping this run going. Yeah, dead get no second chances. We get the point. We get the point. I always love this little exchange here. Like, yeah, you know, everybody's all grim and everything. You know, kind of accept that everyone's about to die, but this is just kind of this jacked up nature of this world. And everybody treats Ravna's like garbage because she's coming in all fancy, and then come to the realization that, yeah, hell of a lot of people died so that they could get get their titles. And it's funny because that ends up coming up in a really cool manner later. But anyway, yeah, so as Cash was saying here, that her and her people all left. Most of her people died, which is why she ends up joining you, because she doesn't really have anyone to lead anymore. And we get our people, who were all ladies this time around, because we were rude to Lands. So apparently he decided to take all the dudes and leave out the ladies with us. Personally, I feel like best optimization early on is just to go for anatomy. It's the same bonus as a weapon effect, except less situational. And at this point, I wasn't sure what weapon I was going to go with for him, so I just kind of left it at that. As for the starting questions, by the way, I was aiming towards strength and strength alone. So everyone harps on how bad strength must be, so he is a strength build, dang it. Yeah, he actually started off with really high health as a result. So he's got like 30 more health than everybody else. Not to mention, dude is a beast. As much as strength gets dunked on, it can't do as much damage, but it can certainly take it. So you end up with really good strength and vitality. If you didn't know, if you use throwing rocks to batter your characters around, they will actually end up boosting their anatomy skill, because it is still checking as to whether or not you have anatomy. So you get skill XP, good little kind of a mini helper thing. It's not going to be enough to power grind. Again, there will be no... Actually, did I mention that? There will be no optional battles in this one. We're strictly going ahead. We're just plowing ahead. No extra battles, no nothing. We're doing everything as minimally as we can. So everybody gets up to levels 2 and 3. Canopus ends up ending that fight for us. We start seeing the witch in action here. I'm going to call her the witch, even though I know she's an enchantress, but whatever. Getting some lucky shots with the archers. And this I wanted to show off because somebody was mentioning that... they guarantee that the heal does as much damage as it heals, and it does not. It still checks for resistance. I believe it uses the amount that you can heal as a base amount, and then minuses resistance. This is why this strategy does not actually work later on, and it's also why stuff like Mother's Blessing does not actually boost it, because it boosts maximum healing. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. If you didn't know, if you give a Magic Leaf to Kashua, she will exercise units nearby. Same thing goes for Donalto, but he's usually a bit more aggressive, so he'll try to damage a skeleton if he can. Additionally, you might see some higher numbers flying around, because again, this is New Game Plus. So, we are seeing, well, most of the grunts will be relatively similar, because we are still technically on low-level scaling as the game sees it. You will see some additional things like augments showing up on enemies. You'll see the AI just generally functioning a bit better. And truth be told, this is the way that the game should have been from the start. There should have been a button to make this happen. And seriously, a massive thanks to the guy that wrote this code a couple years ago. I've been hoping for something like this for years. I can't believe I'd never heard of this thing coming out. But at any rate, we clear out a few of the ghosts early on, end up taking a bit of punishment, but, you know, it's Chrysero. It's no huge deal as long as you keep your team relatively together. If you put anybody out there, this is kind of your tutorial to let you know that that dude is going to die real good, just like Vice tried to do here. He got knocked down to next to nothing, but thankfully we did not lose out on that experience. So, you know, getting a few lucky shots. Again, it's the rain. We don't really have access to many of our skills yet. Basic versions of many of the skills, in all honesty, have way more effect than many folks realize. Wait, was that even English? Have way better effects than many folks realize, let's put it that way. Like, for example, this Valkyrie here, utter garbage. All she has is weapon skill. She can only do 12 damage with that freaking short sword. Ended up going with axes, by the way, for Denim, because, of course, everyone dunks on axes, so we gotta talk about how freaking amazing axes are gonna be now. Don't question it, it's fine. Despite being underleveled and everything else, Canopus can still one-shot Moldova, who does still manage to survive with 1 health. So we're gonna see the MVP Valkyrie coming in here in a second. Coming in for that, she kind of becomes a whole thing for throwing rock kill. Oh no, wait, right, I was going to go for the throwing rock kill, that's later. Vice comes in for the kill steal, as you do. Did a little mini optimization though for giving both anatomy and bows to Vice, because that dude can hit like a truck. In fact, Vice is the hardest hitting character on this team right now by about 10 damage. So everyone's all happy to be alive, as you do, as you would after your first encounter with the undead here, and yeah, they all just kind of agree that hey, this is Denim's problem now. If everyone dies, it's on him. Love how Leonard's like, man, it sure would be amazing and glorious if I went out there and got this win. Oh, but it's not up to me to take that loss. I guess it's this guy. That's kind of a dick move. So Donalto decided to go all crazy with his stick during that fight. I will say, that was actually another question that somebody had. Let me pause it real quick. Because, yeah, somebody had a question over whether certain fights carried over skill experience and things like that for whatever little it does. And yes, if they actually participated in the fight, that is a recruitable unit during that fight, then they will join you with any accrued experience and gear that they came with. So for example, if you're recruiting Divold, if he's equipping that experience or equipping that gear and using that experience during the fight, that's the one you get. If you get them outside of the fight, like Sarah, Voltaire, and Yunin, and in one case, you can do the same thing with Habrim, basically, you can scale up that class to whatever you want, and they will come equipped appropriately for that level, which means you can potentially get equipment that you should really have no excuse to get a hold of at that point. Like, if you leveled up archers and stuff like that to, let's say, level 30 before Chrysero, you absolutely could have endgame weapons by the very beginning of Chapter 1. Fun little cheese. Moving on. So, decided, you know what, it's probably the most suboptimal time to go take on Nibith, so we're gonna do that crap. So, in we went. He's talking about how you profane the light as you profane the dead and all that kind of business. Now, I wasn't sure how this was gonna go. I was originally gonna do this as kind of an Iron Man type situation, but I figure it's way more interesting just to see how it can be done. But anyway, don't worry, this was still a first time. So, I love this little talk back and forth. Sorry for the picture kind of being weird for this one, how it's kind of cutting stuff off every now and then. But I love this little discussion kind of between anyone you bring along as well as Nibith, where he's basically saying, like, yeah, you know, all of this stuff, as far as you're aware, no one has seen a god. This is basically science magic that everyone's throwing around. Prove me otherwise. Also, you're claiming to be the good guy, I'm claiming to be the bad guy, but realistically, everyone's got a similar body count, so what gives? It's cool, you know? But I will point out, actually, this is one of those weird things where they brought Nibith back for that Final Fantasy MMO thing, because of all characters, they bring him back. And yeah, for some reason, the scene that they choose to reference Tactics Ogre is impossible, because in every single scene, Nibith is always above you, except for the very last fight where you're on even ground, and for some reason it shows Denim above him during that fight. Anyway, so yeah, as I was showing there, he's coming in with a whole bunch of new skills. So, for example, they've got a bunch of resists, they've got a bunch of augments, basically the kind of stuff you would expect to see from a character this difficult. And as we end up going up, we end up losing a bunch of people, end up getting torn down, as you do. But the way that I saw it, going into this fight, we didn't need everybody to make it. In fact, the MVP of this fight is a character who didn't even attack Nibith. That is her right here. Eustacia, the Valkyrie, who sat here dodging like an absolute boss, just sitting on that box, deflecting and blocking away all stuff that was coming her way until she eventually got knocked down. The point being, she was tanking damage long enough to make up for our crappy luck with arrows earlier, because I think I had had sidestep on Donalto at this point, and he still kept getting sniped. So sometimes you will just have bad luck, and that's what kept happening this whole fight. We realistically should have made it through with about 3 or 4 people. But anyways, you might be thinking, hey, you must have made it through by cheesing finishers or whatever else. Oh no, we didn't use a single finisher. Remember, this one's being suboptimal. That was actually unintentional. I was originally planning to go for that finisher. Finally, a fireball takes Eustacia out, I think after like 5 rounds or something. I tried to bring Canopus back because he had just gotten his finisher, and then he got taken out. She gets taken out, the healers get taken out, the casters get taken out, everyone's just face-planting all over the place. All that's left is Mr. Denim here with his giant chunky vitality and strength, which is just basically reducing all damage he's taking pretty significantly. So again, hate on those on those strength builds all you want. Everybody else was being hit for like 80s from Nibith. He was taking 50. So it's pretty significant, and then we started seeing people bleeding out, but there really was no time to go back and save people. So we did take a few injuries pretty early on here, but that's fine. Again, we can only use one character from each class, so whatever. And there we go. End up finally finishing him off. He decides to... I forget what he was doing. I think he was going forward and trying to buff somebody or something. But yeah, pretty much just went and decided to walk forward, got an axe right in the back of the head, and there you go. Nibith can be done on vanilla, completely underleveled, completely suboptimally, with no finishers. Tell me that fight's impossible. Moving on. And again, I expected to have to do something tricky for that one. That one just worked. Like, just 3 bow shots from Canopus and an axe from... or 2 axe hits from Denim. There we go. So went and changed everyone's moves around a little bit. Gave counterattack back to Vice. Gave Kashua her Aug Light and Anatomy to boost all those things a little bit. Gave Crestia here, the Berserker, Anatomy because she wasn't hitting worth jack. Gave Christiana here Anatomy as well to further double up on that damage. And then got Meditate on Emily the Enchantress. This was a bit of a dumb thing because I didn't... Okay, this is a bit for the next fight. I didn't realize... I was trying to find Spell Strike, and I completely forgot where it was on the list. Anyway, Eustacia got Counterattack to help train better. Canopus got Anatomy, you know, as you do. Would eventually just stick with just bows for him, but oh well. Donalto, not really too much I can do with him just yet. And so, yeah, he's over here talking about how well you served him and stuff like that. He totally won't backstab you. What a great dude. So, yeah, we're gonna go to, do the backroom thing. Like, oh yeah, wait, them dudes, we don't get along with them dudes, why are we going there? I'm like, well, we're gonna get along with the dudes we don't get along with, so just deal with it. And then, yeah, you know, lots of cool dialogue happens, where they're talking about how, basically their whole lives were ruined by the fact that these guys helped them. But this is functionally the equivalent of, like, hating on all countries in the UN because one of them did something you didn't like. Because it's like, their whole purpose is basically one puppet state asked for help, so they got sent out to go help them in whatever way they could. They really had no dogs in the race, so to speak, but anyway. So he gives you another $5,000. We will not be spending it because, again, we're not going to a store. So, using the gear we got, we take Leonard's stuff to get a few little optimizations here. We give Eustacia the sword and shield so that she can maybe actually do some damage. End up giving Sub-Optimus the armor, so that he can be even more tanky, because I'm just trying to build him for full-on tank status. And so, yeah, Brezin the Sword Fighter, who does not use a sword, he can spawn with an axe or a hammer. Actually, I believe only a hammer in this version. This guy's over here pointing out that, hey, maybe they should just go join people instead of fighting pointlessly in the middle of a forest, so, you know, this is dumb. Maybe we shouldn't fight these guys. And then he dies, and then everybody has a bit of a constipation attack, as you do. Yeah, then he gives everybody a rousing speech, and they're all ready to die for him. So that's entirely on them. But, yeah, this guy just landed the craziest crit of all time, doing about 8 times damage, if all things are taken into consideration. So Canopus doing the snipes. The Archer doing some snipes. Or actually, no, that was Vice doing those snipes. So yeah, Vice does more damage than Canopus still. This will continue. Vice actually seems to have better stats. Yeah, give them an offer of surrender, and he, like, this guy is just straight up not willing to go home at all. As he says right here. It's like, what is your deal? Why do you want to die so bad? Like, I guess it's just my time. I'm feeling ready. Just woke up feeling ready to lose a war today. As you do. Like, literally, this guy's just... Your boss is coming down with severe depression. This is a joke that gets made occasionally for, like, D&D jokes and stuff like that, but sure enough, here it is. So this guy is just annoyed at the fact that this guy won't take his depression seriously. So we move on with more snipes. The Archer, our kind of generic Archer there is being really disappointing. Valkyrie gets her first kill. That Valkyrie is really just doing her thing. And yeah, we're seeing 45s coming out from the Wizard. He's coming in with Aug Ice. We're seeing their Fencers coming in with Anatomy and stuff like that. Normally they would only have have stuff like a basic weapon skill and stuff like that. There are cross-skilled users coming in for a crossbow and dagger build, which is pretty cool to see. It's just, I don't know, I always appreciate that build. It shows up throughout the entire series. It almost never works out well, but it's just cool to see there, you know? You just know there's going to be that one guy that needs to carry a bunch of weapons on them. And as you can see, with this amazing axe on Denim and our full-on strength build, and we have 40 strength at this point, by the way, he is doing 20 damage, as you do. It's just axes are, interestingly enough, a defensive weapon. That's kind of an odd thing, because all the different weapons will have different niches and stuff like that. Most of the one-handed axes do come with defensive bonuses, which is, again, whatever works. Actually, there's a lot of weird rules for weapons that may not be initially clear when it comes to vanilla. Like, they're way more clear in One Vision, for sure. You look at a thing and it immediately makes sense as to, like, hey, big weapon, do big damage, I use that for hitting the thing. You know, claw and spear, good for defense. Monkey brain, understand. So, in vanilla, there's weirder stuff like axes giving you a bunch of vitality bonuses because you're, like, presumably, strengthening yourself by working out with this awkward weapon, or like Terranites and stuff like that benefiting from two-handers by just getting a bunch of resistance bonuses and being lighter than their other options. Like, it's just odd. Anyway, so as you can see, others are getting hit for 50. He's getting hit for 13. All that big beefy strength and vitality is doing its thing. Denim's been working out. He's ready for the suboptimal challenge. He's not optimal. Dude's just built. Anyway. So we see two-handers taking out Donalto, as they do. She always comes with that build, but, always kind of found that particular Amazon there kind of interesting. That they specifically come built for accuracy, but still do a pretty decent amount of damage. They're a good salesperson for two-handers. Our generic archer here is still barely doing 1 damage to anything. We got Leonard over here trying to do some damage. This over here, we've still got 50% odds on this Enchantress, but she was doing a pretty good job. Just slapping away people's turns, even if the odds were, again, about 50%. We will improve that. But I feel like, and it's funny because I was having a discussion with somebody about this earlier, it's interesting how often Spell Strike gets completely overlooked. Because it's one of those things that just doesn't really come to mind, that people think like, oh man, I used that debuff and I used stun and it was 100% that one time, that must mean it's always good. Is it though? Because you can get away with so much stuff with Spell Strike, and you'll see in just a moment. Because sure, 50% is nice, but as it stands, I want her to be a Dark Mage here. Actually, I kind of want her to be unaffiliated. I just want her to be a debuff spammer, essentially creating a Ogre Battle Witch, as it were. Got Leonard over here trying to use more of his special moves and stuff like that. But yeah, as far as her, I want her to be exclusively a debuff spammer. And, best way to do that is to make sure that they're actually accurate. And the cool thing about having those kinds of accuracy bonuses and stuff like that, stuff like Spell Strike, you are immediately getting that bonus. It's roughly like a 15-20% accuracy bonus depending on your situation. There's a whole lot of different stuff that can happen. But essentially, like, let's say you have Og Dark, you're getting like 4 extra damage, and if it gets past enemy defenses, you're getting, 10-20 extra damage. Fantastic, great. That's per rank. Okay, so you gotta take that and you gotta level it up for quite a while. However, something like Spell Strike, you look at it and it's like, well, 20% more accurate. You can take the debuff, and you can make sure that that character just never takes a turn. And you can have them running around doing this to multiple characters, meaning if you have multiple debuff spammers, which for the purposes of this run, we will be quite limited in how many we can actually use, you might end up with some pretty interesting results. I mean, just mass stun alone is really, really strong, and especially if you keep somebody with Denim's Necklace, that thing gives you stun immunity, meaning that you can potentially get somebody surrounded and stun everyone around them. So, anywho, this fight took a little bit longer than it usually does. Used a few Blessing Stones to keep the party intact, and ultimately we did end up finishing off this guy, which got me infuriatingly close to the next thing that I wanted to get, but just very slightly off. And Eustacia comes in for her second big kill here. she'll end up like, she's basically a low-key clutch character, just constantly defending denim and stuff like that. So, get a few more things to add to our potential tool belt, especially those meads. Not many folks realize how friggin' good that mead is. Like, mead plus plume equals literally anything just died. So yeah, we're a little bit off from being able to recruit. We're almost there, but just a little bit off. Finally end up picking up Spell Strike for the Enchantress, meaning she's finally going to be able to hit stuff. We got Eustacia here finally getting Anatomy to be able to do some real damage. We got Donalto coming in with Sidestep so that hopefully he doesn't get hit by stuff now. He still ends up getting hit by stuff. We've got Lenner coming in and replacing Rampadora with True Strike, because I really don't want them building up a wall in front of us. I just thought this shot looked cool because you could have the the name of the map. And so I thought, you know what, the most suboptimal thing that we could do at this point is just go ahead and try to take on Sistina. So our first one was incredibly unlucky. Like, legit, I have not seen this bad since, like, Sistina luck in quite a while, and this is considering how bad Sistina's luck usually is. She's coming in with Spears and Anatomy, which means that her New Game Plus version here is way hardier than her usual one. So that's at least handy right there. I mean, it doesn't really matter for the sake of the strategy, because one way or another you still have to save her within about 3 turns, or else you just lose. And again, you don't have to. It's just the suboptimal thing to do right now. And that will continue. So, anyway, so we go in, standard kind of setup here. Just trying to charge in, trying to keep everybody all light and brisk and everything, take away Lenner's stuff. Man, what he ends up doing later is just infuriating. We got the one good bit of luck here with Donalto blocking with that stick. And, yeah, then everybody starts piling right on her. They'll either go down and charge or they'll attack. Now, 73%. Those odds are looking pretty good for a sleep. Alright? We essentially we made one basic change and used one item that's obligatory. That's all it takes to be able to shut down that dragon. You absolutely have the options to pull it off. So as you can see, Sistina's not doing terribly. She's doing okay damage. She's doing alright. She's actually doing more damage than most of our characters here. So, alright, fair enough, fair enough. Vice going in for those shots, as you do. And so we're doing very little, but our goal here at this point is to shield bash people forward so that hopefully they can start aggroing the AI to them. And so, unfortunately, despite about 40% odds to hit from that Valkyrie, she hits every single one of her attacks. Additionally, the archers have about 60% chance to hit. They land every single one of their shots, not to mention we end up getting the Great Bow spawn, which means that they attack from even longer range. They do eventually end up going after Donalto instead, but yeah, no, every single frickin' thing, despite how low the odds are, keeps just nailing her. So we figure, okay, we'll go ahead and change Donalto to a more standard type setup. We'll give Canopus just a circlet. He's got his pecs to protect him after all. We've got Lenner losing some of that armor so that he can aggro a little bit better. And this should be a nice mix between keeping some defensive threshold while also getting the AI nice and ready to go. Vice going in for bigger hits this time. We got her actually blocking hits, finally. I mean, 40%, what the hell. We've got Lenner taking those initial shots. We've got shield bashes going in. Yes, we are damaging our own dudes, but it's definitely worth it. If you have Anatomy, that's how you get that big shield bash damage early on. We've got Lenner doing even less damage than before, or just 1 damage. As you do. We learned Sleep, but also missed that 73% again. We've got, more snipes. More snipes are always welcome. And just to point out, we don't have any warriors on the controllable team. The only warrior acceptable is Vice, and you can't change him out of that team, meaning that for quite a while we can't even use the warrior at all. So the wizard can barely be avoided, if at all. He's got about 93% odds to hit, but everything else is in about the 40 to 60% range when it comes to Sistina. She's reasonably evasive enough that with these minor optimizations, this is consistent. I actually ran it 2 more times just to be certain. This is absolutely consistent. If you set up like this, there is no reason you should have an issue trying to save her in this fight. But anyway, I mean, barring her AI being incredibly stupid, because in this case we actually did end up getting the Great Bow spawn too, and I believe she actually did end up blocking that one, but anyway. So, Donalto gets locked in here, so we can't even get the kind of optimal heal off here. I believe Leonard ends up healing her. I'm not certain on that. Emily finally lands that sleep on the dragon. We finally get everybody close enough to aggro the wizard. Canopus flying up here up top to go take out ye wizard man. And got the Valkyrie coming in with that rock kill, as you do. And yeah, unfortunately, Donalto can't move anywhere to get those heals off. He's just completely locked in here. Because we're not necessarily doing much damage to the dragon, but that doesn't matter. He's out of the fight. He's just kind of a barricade now. So we've got a few of their frontline units getting taken down. We've got our archer circling around trying to take out the berserker. This douche comes around and takes my loot, so I believe those were actually my plumes, so, well, bye to those. We've got Sistina coming in with those big wind shots now. So, finally, the berserker ends up going down, and strangely enough, when we finished off this Beastmaster, he actually, for whatever reason, didn't end up spawning the 3 class marks he usually drops. He spawned 2 of them and 1 extra equipment item, and I mean, I don't get it, but sure, I guess in New Game Plus he only drops 2 for some reason. But either way, we gang-piled the hell out of the smirking bastard, as you do. I've got dragons coming in with those 80 pluses, as they do. Big hurt from Big Lizard. So finally got a chance to start recovering everybody here because we were starting to see units go down. I was worried about having to spend more Blessing Stones. I know this initial team isn't really the best thing in the world, and quite honestly, we're going to be able to just get better people as time goes on. But as it stands, it would be good to try to keep them alive for as long as possible. So, at any rate, we end up getting more heals. We end up shield bashing this guy off a roof just for fun. I know he doesn't take fall damage, but it was just kind of amusing. So he decides to retreat back, give this guy a bit of a heal. And finally, Beastmaster guy goes down. We've got Leonard going in with those multi-hits, and as you can see, Bolus is a tough bastard. This is why I was kind of laughing at the guy the other day, saying that Bolus isn't difficult to take down. He is weirdly difficult to take down. I mean, he is your first enemy, like, proper knight, I suppose. So Birdie Man goes down. I believe he actually does drop his Great Bow, because I know we had one after this. So I'm thinking, like, okay, we'll go beat this dragon, just take the dragon out, maybe collect its stuff. Sure, we can't use crafting materials, but, and maybe a Tooth and Claw trophy gallery will be in order. Well, not so much. So we end up getting Emily back. We'll just say Emily. I believe it's supposed to be like Emily or something, but whatever, same difference. So, dead shots coming in from Sistina. Pretty much everything's doing 10 to 30 damage to each of these guys. It's definitely not optimal, but it is enough to wear them down. And, alright, fair enough. As long as nothing incredibly stupid happens, we're fine, right? This is surely fine. And you might be saying, wait a minute, somebody's locked into a corner with a dragon. They can't win that. Not to mention finishers are only doing 33 damage. Thankfully, they actually do proper damage to the rest of the generics. Interesting thing about the bow finishers, by the way, they do not give as much of an attack bonus as many of the other ones. So if your stats are low, or you're under-leveled, you're going to have a much harder time actually piercing defenses with those, unless you've got a pretty hefty longbow. Anyway, just kind of an interesting balance actually working kind of thing. So Vice goes in for the guaranteed kill. And you might be saying, wait a minute, I don't see any potential for a problem here. You just plink away what's left, you can easily out-heal his damage. And yeah, you know what? We can. You know what they can also do? They can also out-heal a lot of this damage. But all the same, as long as we surround them, everything's fine, right? Well, allow me to introduce you to Leonard being a moron. So, he decided, since he's got an aggressive AI, that he needs to go after Bolus. He got himself stuck on that tile. Bolus can't move. He refuses to move. So the two of them are just stuck in an eternal deadlock while Bolus just sits there out healing everything. because he can't be, we essentially can't bring all of our damage to bear on account of most of our attack tiles being denied here. The fact that Lennar keeps going and healing instead of attacking, and just, yeah, this entire situation just starts going to crap real quick. Not to mention, then the dragon does this and denies even more of those attack tiles. So it gets to be more and more of a problem, so he just keeps healing away and healing away. I mean, we do eventually get him, it's just, you know, I ended up having to use another Blessing Stone to make sure Donalto was still around. Yeah, that was something a little bit different. But yeah, eventually we did manage to get through this bullcrap. But, yeah, Lennar being a traitor a bit early this time around. But all things considered, we did end up doing pretty okay. Ended up almost deciding to go for that final revive there. Wait, did I? I don't think I ended up needing to. I started attacking Lennar to see if he would go for his finisher or something like that. He did end up going for the finisher. And then I think it was Sistina that came in. Yeah, Sistina was the one that finished him. And it was so fitting to see the line this time around. The whole, I wasn't fated here to die to you kind of thing. It's like, yeah, the one that you were just arresting took out your entire army. So that was kind of cool to see. So we got our 4s and 5s this time around. We got access to the Beastmaster. And this is when the team ended up getting adjusted quite a good bit. So she does her custom bowing animation. I was a little bit slow to capture that, but didn't feel like redoing the fight to get it. At least not at first. And then when I ended up running it a couple more times, then I just didn't really feel like doing it. But anyway, so yeah, everyone talks about how the Liberation Front is doing their thing, and they're more or less the same deal on a different part of the island. But either way, you know, Vice, for all of his talk over like, oh, these guys are basically the worst and butcher people all the time, will later go on to butcher people all the time himself. But anywho, yeah, there's that. So this whole line about insects being nothing but bugs under the boots of their betters always kind of sounded cool. And whatever the hell he means by live as men, isn't that sexist? I'm pretty sure some folks are into that. Anyway, moving on. So eventually, Lennar tells him to shut the hell up and tells her to leave, and everyone's just kind of on their way. All he's here for is delivering the mail. The post office is a bit heavily armed around this time period. Alright, so... And, yeah, then she starts talking all crazy about making the world all fair and just. Good luck with that one. And, alright, so she heads off on her way. We end up getting told sweet stuff about this castle. Like, oh man, it's gonna be so hard to take later. I sure hope that it isn't led by a swordmaster who runs out in front and just dies. It would be such a shame if all these defenses went to complete waste because some guy in a bathrobe was their leader. But, oh well. Yeah, I feel like they really could have done a better job with all that. Though I'm curious to see how he'll go in New Game Plus, because Swordmasters do get access to armor, so, you know, they might be able to do some stuff. Any dang ways. Everybody ends up walking their way inside. For anyone wondering about the artwork, by the way, why Lennar's holding that document on him, you do see him pull that document out to hand it to Balzaphon at this point, which is kind of cool. That they specifically reference the story in such an oddly specific way. And then Lancelot shows up like frickin' Batman here, as you do. You know what? Dude's just cool. Like, I'm sure I wasn't the only one who was playing this game through the first time. Like, didn't even realize that this was the... I didn't even realize exactly the connection between Night of Lotus and this one, even though I'd played Night of Lotus first. And I was just thinking, like, man, this dude's just cool. I don't know, is he supposed to be the bad guy? Because he doesn't seem to be the actual bad guy here. But, anywho. Actually, I've seen a lot of Twitter artwork, just specifically showing, like, him and Cashua just hanging out. Of all the fan art. Like, that makes sense. You think somebody went on a bit of a kill Cashua route on that one. But yeah, then they start going over all the politics over why they can't ask for help and everything else. And he's like, yeah, I mean, we're only just kind of here because it's our job, so, I mean, no skin off our ass, as they say. So whatever, we're not getting involved. We're just going to sit here. We're doing all right. But yeah, I was talking about how the Bakram kind of suck, and everyone can kind of agree on that. And I mean, he's really only here because they screwed up, so whatever works. And apparently, alarm's going off. And then realizes, like, oh, hey, I saw you guys kind of incinerated your parents. My bad on that one. Such things just sort of happen, you know? A bit of a side note. It's always seemed a little strange to me how they kept the whole blue hair thing, but then yeah, left him with the gray hair in the portrait. Which I believe the reason for that is because he had gray hair in the original and everything, and then he's got the blue hair Knight of Lotus. I feel like it was made a bit more blue in this one for that reference, because it's way darker in the SNES version, but, you know, whatever works. Usually blue was a stand-in for black anyway, due to some kind of color limitations, as I understand. Alright, so he's going to talk about how they're going to leave, because this all got super awkward. Love that they've got the little bowing animation and stuff like that going on there. And like, hey, you remember that brother you totally didn't blind and chuck in a sewer ditch somewhere? Yeah, that guy was a cool guy. I'm sure you know nothing about that. They totally reminded me of you. Or rather, they made me think of that. So finally we get access to Recruit, and this is basically where the run gets to change. This is where stuff starts getting quite a bit different. End up getting strengthened on the Berserker finally, so maybe she'll actually do damage now. Ended up getting Tremendous Shot on the Archer, so she can be a bit more consistent. Ended up getting True Flight on Canopus to basically bring those 70% up to 100% ideally. Still running relatively low armor. Bear in mind, we're not running accessories on anyone. We haven't even gotten one yet. We've got the full previous Eleanor set moving over to her. And then we finally got a Great Bow on our main archer. So everyone's got some different equipment going on, kind of working their way up in the world. And yeah, I'm like, oh man, sure glad you did all that loyalty. It's okay, I won't backstab you later, so this is great. And yeah, maybe go to this prison camp thing. Sounds fun, yeah? And yeah, talking about how everyone's dying all the time, yet surprisingly they don't feel like leaving. And talking about how they're going to get 5,000 people to just do the whole revolt thing. Just Vice completely chugging that Kool-Aid, as you do. And yeah, at least he's honest here and just admits, like, hey guys, we we got no chance, just so you know. It's kind of our one shot here. It's complete Hail Mary, but give it a go. Give it a go. And what's funny is, while reading all of it, if you look, the lighting is a little bit different in the scene, and it just feels way more somber. And I'm not sure if anyone's been in one of those moments where everyone gets together and, like, it's a serious life or death situation. It's like, dude, here's our options. None of them are good. It's just how we're doing. And they nailed that tone. There's a specific just coloration to everything that you just sort of mentally see in those situations. Anyway, so I've got Lands over here going on about, like, hey, so the whole slave camp thing not sitting well with you, right? Like, just so you know, everyone is still totally ready to die all the time. Just so you know, we gotta hammer that in with this dialogue here. And, I mean, that's fair. That's fair. Now, I will say that this scene always bugged me personally, because this music box is freakishly huge. Like, where does he keep that thing? And I know this is mostly a limitation of the art, because they wanted to show that he had the box and they opened it up. Realistically, it's probably like one of these little handheld ones that are like the size of a coffee mug, or maybe smaller, you know, maybe the size of a ring box or something. I really can't imagine he's got this gigantic friggin' thing and he just crates around with him everywhere. Otherwise, no wonder he ends up getting vegetized later, because dude ended up being weighed down by his friggin' music box. But anyway, I mean, it's implied that he still had the thing with him when he, well, got tortured into a coma. However that worked. So I don't know if he just, like, shoved it up somewhere or what exactly, but yeah. And so we move on to Grion here. And that's kind of where this particular one ended up pausing for now. So that's all for part one. I thought, you know what, this run's going to be fun. This run got off to a fun start already. I can't wait to do the rest of it. Basically, the idea is going to go that whenever a new class becomes available, wherever it drops, since again, we can't really use stores, so it's just kind of whenever class marks drop, that somebody has to switch over to that class, and even more experience ends up getting siphoned off. So this leads to a really fun scenario where it's kind of a minimum level run, you know? It's like, trying to calculate exact minimums for everything aren't going to be very exact, but either way, I think it's a really fun run. I've been having a blast with it so far, so I can't wait to get to part 2. And, it's going to be a few days before another update anyway, because a whole bunch of stuff going on right now. Just wanted to get a bunch of these out. So you guys have a fantastic one. Let me know what you think, and have any of you also tried similar runs? Because I know myself and several others have immediately started looking at that cheat code and been like, man, this is the moment to go back and redo all those weird vanilla runs that felt too easy the first time through, like no skills or like rock only or anything like that. So that's exciting. That's just plain exciting. So anyway, you guys have a good one. Take care, and thank you for stopping by.